we're entering a period of politics where, it can be tricky to get a bank account if you've got the wrong views.
So what's next then? We're it's in the weekend just gone. You've got some new polling out, which we can put into this, into the show notes to this podcast. It's quite startling, I think, to say that nearly half of Britons are more afraid to speak their minds than they were 5 years ago.
Well, it is half of Britons are afraid to speak their minds. And I mean, obviously I suspected this, which is why why I commissioned the polling, and B, why before I commissioned the polling, I decided that this was a really important issue. And we've got a real problem with our Prime Minister as well, who's sitting there going, it's okay to be woke, and you would look after your traditions and your things. And it's like, no, it's not. They stand in direct contravention to each other. So what you're doing here, Boris, is you're supporting it. And if you're saying there's nothing wrong with being woke, then you're supporting it. But there is a lot wrong with being woke. There's a lot wrong with people not being able to speak their minds freely. You cannot have the full and proper debate unless people are free to speak. So I have to say I was pretty startled that it's half of the population, but I also have to say that in another way, one part of me expected it, and I feel bad really that we've got a Prime Minister who was voted in, a Conservative Prime Minister who's voted in, and he's said it's okay to be woke, but he's got no opinion on whether it's all right to chest feed or breastfeed.
That was a debate from last week, wasn't it, with the guidance in Brighton in one of the hospitals down there. We should say, of course, that it's a proper poll, isn't it? Savannah Comrades did it. 2,119 UK adults over 80 and weighted for the population. So it's a proper piece of work, isn't it?
It is a proper piece of work, and it's also supported and supplemented by some much deeper, not much deeper, but even more polling. We commissioned 3 sets of polling over this area and other areas, which over the coming months, we're going to start sharing with people. I mean, some of the findings are just really startling and so worrying, because it's having a real effect actually on people's lives. So, you're stifling the debate amongst experts in the medical field over COVID and things like that. So people are not coming forward who've got a lot of expertise.
Yeah. I'll just skim through some brief findings. Again, they'll be in the show notes to this podcast. 42% of Britons afraid of speaking their minds on transgender rights, against 25% not afraid. On immigration, 43% afraid to speak their mind, rather than 28% who weren't. 43% of people are afraid to speak their minds with the police. Again, 23% not, and so it goes on. 38% of people worried about speaking their mind in the office or the workplace. 24% against. There's a pattern here, isn't there, that people are just worried about saying what they think.
Absolutely, because the woke, as I call them, these very morally superior people are so unconfident in their position, their authoritarian position, which they're slowly imposing as it's come out of American universities, the humanities in American universities, into English universities, institutions, and increasingly into corporate life in the UK. And just in the last 2 days, we've had the Disney actress has been ditched by Disney. These rabid, nation-hating Twitter mobs who come after people and try and end their careers. It's just so revealing that A, they have no strength or confidence in their argument enough to be able to debate it with anybody, and the B, that they would choose to decide that their way of solving this problem is to end people's careers. And we're the cradle of democracy, I thought, and I believe we're not. I believe if we don't take hold of this problem, it's an emerging and very, very serious problem. If we don't take hold of it and we don't have someone there politically standing saying we stand for freedom of speech, then it's Stasi time. What's next? You go into the National Health Service and you say the wrong word. You say breastfeeding instead of chest feeding. Do you get better treatment, worse treatment? Who knows? I don't like the way the language is going with it.